center. 1861. 1861. I spent a lot of time on preparing chapter 2. Okay. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshir junatishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra radhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated on a machine made of the material energy. Purport. Arjuna was not the supreme knower, and his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited discretion. Lord Krishna instructed that the individual is not all in all the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or he himself, Krishna, is the localized supersoul. As the localized supersoul sits in the heart, directing the living being. After changing bodies, the living entity forgets his past deeds, but the supersoul, as the knower of the past, present, and future, remains the witness of all his activities. Therefore, all the activities of the living entities are directed by the supersoul. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the supersoul. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car. Somehow I got mixed up. Though the living entities, the driver may be the same. We did discuss this. Similarly, by the order of the Supreme Soul, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity so that he may work according to his past desires. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The individual is always under the Lord's control. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender. And that is the injunction of the next verse. I remember our discussion from the last time. The last time we discussed a couple of verses, didn't we? Yeah, overcoming obstacles by being conscious of Krishna. Krishna is in everyone's heart. Now, Krishna is here speaking as if he's not the one who's situated in every living entity's heart. He's speaking like third person. He's in the heart. But I'm in the heart. It's first person. Well, understandable in one sense, and not so understandable in another sense. The understandable one is Krishna is Bhagavan. And the Paramatma feature is Krishna's expansion. And therefore we can say Krishna is situated in the heart of every living entity. Or, also correct, Paramatma is situated in the heart of every living entity. Paramatma is Krishna's expansion. Now, where all this is leading up to, I'm starting to remember our class from last week, is leading up to the culmination of the whole message of Bhagavad Gita and certainly the whole chapter 18, which is surrender to Krishna. I'll flash back to what I prepared from chapter 2. Chapter 2, towards the end of chapter 2, there's description of overcoming obstacles on the path of bhakti. Could you take your video and make your video disappear? Sankarshan Das, can you make your... Thank you. Okay. Yeah. There are different systems of yoga. Each one of the systems of yoga requires control of the mind and senses. And there are different systems or methods for trying to control the mind and senses. And essentially, what is being said there is, even one may try to restrain one's senses from sense objects and restrain the mind from contemplating those objects, it will be unsuccessful without taking shelter of the personality of Godhead. That's chapter 2. So it's Bodhi yoga. Bodhi means intelligence, and when Stita Pragya, when one is situated in intelligence, then that real intelligence is taking shelter of Krishna. That real intelligence comes to one who has taken shelter of Krishna. Bodhi yoga. Bodhi. Thank you. Intelligence is given to one who takes shelter of Krishna. You can say conversely, that same intelligence is awarded by Supersoul if one has not taken shelter of Krishna. The material intelligence is awarded, and it takes intelligence to function in this world. Like, for example, Prabhupada gives this a nice example. A thief and a cat. So the thief is prowling around at night because it's dark and he thinks people can't see him. It's better to steal at night than when people can see him. Now they don't mind at all, broad daylight. But sneaking around at night, he's thinking, uh-oh, here comes somebody, stay low. Okay, now they passed and now I can go forward and make my burglary. So the burglar is supplied intelligence by Supersoul. Of course, the homeowner has his own intelligence doing whatever he's going to do. But even the intelligence of burglar comes from Supersoul. Or the cat, a nicer example maybe. The cat's in the kitchen, and the cat waits for the housewife to leave the kitchen, and then the cat can jump up on the table and take the milk. And some cats aren't so controlled like that, but some, where does the intelligence come from? Or an example I just heard Prabhupada speak, you spill some sugar juice on the floor. Of course, when you're in India, there's ants around, and you get hundreds of ants. They send an alarm. Hey, sugar juice, let's go. So it takes intelligence to be an ant to find the sugar juice, or the cat to jump on the table when the housewife is not there, or the burglar to steal. Bad intelligence, kumati, also comes from Supersoul. And what's being said in this verse that we just read, when a body is received by a living entity, when the body is received by a living entity, then you act according to the body received. I'm sure you remember, wasn't too many chapters ago, in chapter 13, the same verse, sad asad yoni janmasu. When a living entity gets a particular type of body, then they act according to that body. And the good fortune, ill fortune comes according to their karma, but karma awards a particular type of body. So, one gets the body of a king, one behaves like a king, one gets the body of a dog, one behaves like a dog, one gets the body of whatever, and one behaves like whatever, born by the impulses of the modes of material nature. So there's teamwork between the modes of nature and karma, and that's a whole topic. But the machine made of the material energy, prakriti means the modes of nature, and the shape of the modes of nature is impacted also by karma. So combination, good and karma, we get a body, and we're forced to act helplessly, born of the impulses. That's also in chapter 2, by the way, very same section. Born of the impulses of the modes of nature. Persons are forced to act. Now, is there an option? Is there an alternative out? Intelligence is needed to guide the intelligence, to guide the mind, which is to guide the senses. And with the connection with Supersoul, then it's made complete. Unfortunately, most people are not Supersoul conscious, and therefore they're moved by the machine. Conditioned souls. We're very familiar with that term. We're very familiar with that space. There's impressions. There's a nice teaching I'll share called Vasana. Vasana means it's more than just impressions. It's tendencies due to a long-standing set of impressions, kind of like habits that we don't necessarily think about. It's just we're impelled by those impressions of the past, and the movements that go along with that creates impressions. That is, impressions means like the senses gather information from some activity, and the information goes to the mind. The senses direct information to the mind stores an impression, and similar impressions makes a vasana, or a tendency, a conditioned tendency. And conditioned tendency has the funny thing about it, they come out. Tendencies keep repeating. Even when we don't even know what we're doing, we're just, tendency comes out. However that's going to come out. And something unrelated looks like something that tendency is conditioning. That tendency tells us, and then there's a response. A behavior or a speech or a emotion, something. We're conditioned, and it's the machine. We remember discussing this. Yantra, Rudhani. Arudhani is the Sanskrit explains that it's like a puppet that's on strings, like a marionette pulls a puppet. Yantra Arudhani. I wish I'd prepared for this evening's class instead of something else. So we're just being moved. It's very similar to that nice painting where the three modes by three different colors, those nice three ladies, goodness, passion, ignorance, and they're pulling strings. And down below, there's the puppet. And there's the worker, and there's the supervisor of the worker. And the worker is thinking whatever he's thinking about being the worker, and the supervisor is thinking in false ego about his being a supervisor. And they're being moved by the material energy. And there are those three ladies upstairs. And the whole procedure is like a machine, like a puppet or a puppet being moved by a marionette. Isn't that right? A marionette is the puppet or the ones that move the strings? Don't know. Which?
Marionette.
Is the puppet or is people with the strings?
That's the name of the puppet. Okay?
Yeah, the puppet with the specific type of puppet with the strings.
It's called a marionette.
Okay, the puppet with the strings is a marionette, and the one that moves the strings is? Puppeteer. Okay. So those three ladies, they're the puppeteers. And the people down below, they're the Yantra Rodani. And they're just moving. Thinking, as Prabhupada writes in the purport twice, thinking independent, but there's no independence. They're thinking independent, but there's no independence. I'll say it again. They're thinking independent, but there's no independence. Declaration of Independence. Take any country. India, Independence Day. Are they independent? They're dependent. They're dependent in every possible way you want to think of being independent or dependent. They're dependent. Not they, we. And so where's this, how do you get off this train? Well, remember chapter 18, I remember discussing this last week. Chapter 18 is a summary of everything that's been presented in the previous 18 chapters. So if you can understand one way, if you can understand chapter 18, you've understood the whole Bhagavad Gita. Or if you understand the whole Bhagavad Gita, then you can easily understand chapter 18. So it's a review and a summary, kind of like what chapter 2 is, contents of the Gita summarized. So it's very nice. It's giving a restatement of something that's not new, but it's kind of the conclusions, contents of the Gita summarized. Or the perfection of renunciation is the title of the chapter. So how to renounce, renounce false ego. Renounce the misconception that you're independent. You don't stop making free will choices. You continue making you make the right free will choices in relation to Krishna. Because that's yoga. That's Bhagavad Gita's message. Choose Krishna. Now the default mode is if you don't choose Krishna, what are you choosing? Choosing independence from Krishna. There's a nice statement toward the very beginning of Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha, where, because it's Bhakti Sandarbha is about bhakti, and Bhagavad Gita is also about bhakti. So how does the whole program of non-bhakti begin? It's by turning our attention away from Krishna, by having an attitude, a rebellious spirit, independent of Krishna. I want to be independent. Prabhupada gives this nice example. We've heard it so many times. When the father is very wealthy, and he wants simply the welfare of his dependents, and the dependents want independence, so they leave home. And the father never stops thinking about the dependents, although the dependents stop thinking about the father. And the father is very eager for the son to return and be comfortable and have necessities and not struggle, the struggle for independence that never happens because we're never independent. So the right position, the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, where these concluding verses are heading, is to take shelter of Krishna. It's the message of Bhagavad Gita. It's the message of any proper scripture is take shelter of Krishna. Now here, the term that's being used, of course, is super soul, because super soul very kindly is accompanying the living entity in his pursuit of independence. And the super soul is providing according to the desire, and from desire comes activity. From ignorant desire comes ignorant activity, comes a body, bondage. So super soul is directing all that. They're directing the wanderings of all living entities according to their desire. Their desire indicates then their deserve. They get what they deserve. We get what we deserve. Good or bad, or mixed. Asada sad yoni janmasu, that same verse. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam gudasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. Nice verse. It's good to learn Bhagavad Gita, so we'll know how to make the right kinds of choices, because we're responsible for the choices we make. Sadasad. Good fortune or ill fortune comes our way. Our karma comes our way due to the free will choices we make. And then there's the ultimate free will choice to take shelter of Krishna. That's where these series of verses are leading. So there's misfortune. The focus on this verse 61. There's misfortune in taking a body that's like a machine, and depending upon the body, one is impelled to act. Now, intelligence, there's material intelligence. Material intelligence can try to adjust things so that it's less uncomfortable, seems more like pleasure, temporary, impermanent, so-called pleasure, and be happy with temporary, so-called happiness. And that buying into that program buys perpetual birth and death, or another body in another body. So not just moksha in the sense of termination of the cycle of birth and death, but bhakti, where the eternal service to Krishna in the mood of surrender to Krishna, but it starts with mam ekam sharanam in principle, and it continues and continues and continues. We've left that realm somehow or other. Somehow or other. Yadrichaya, somehow or other. Some inexplicable somehow or other. Here we are, struggling with a machine, gross and subtle, moving along, trying to find independence and trying to find happiness and trying to find a way out. Or just stay inside and make the best use of it. Bhagavad Gita is for persons who are a little more thoughtful. We're not meant for this suffering. Why must there be suffering? I'm sure you know this very nice passage where Sanatana Goswami is meeting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag. He places straw in his teeth. He falls at his feet and he asks two questions. Not who am I, but what am I? K, Ami. And the second question is, why do I suffer the threefold miseries? Meaning, we're not meant to suffer the threefold miseries, and a person that's alert, not just like wants to minimize the suffering or mitigate the suffering, but find the answer to the question, why is it there? Why are the threefold miseries there? That's a good question. Who wants them? And it's if we all don't want them, why are they there? And K ami, what am I? Of course, who am I? But what am I? What is my position? My position currently is suffering. Why is that? What's my real position? The not suffering position which we desire. So that not suffering position which we desire is not just dialing down the suffering, and that's happiness, or dialing up the senses and sense objects contact, and that's happiness. But it's another kind of happiness, it's another kind of peace, it's another kind of existence. And that's the existence of surrender to Krishna. And so even in the present, the concluding remarks, even in the present situation, the machine is going on. While we're sitting here having our Bhagavad Gita class, the machine is going on. And we're being taught by Krishna that Super Soul is situated within the heart all the while, and intelligence, spiritual intelligence from the previous sections of Bhagavad Gita, Dadami Bodhi Yogam Tam, spiritual intelligence can be given by Super Soul, Yena Mam Upayanti Te, so we can come to him. But that's awarded for those who demonstrate they want it. The demonstration of wanting it is constant engagement. Satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam, with great love. With great love, yes. And there's a nice verse, out of so many nice verses. I was just reading from Raghunath Das Goswami, where he's explaining a principle in Manashiksha. He's explaining a principle that Radha and Krishna in Vraja have a very special favor. I was looking for that verse this morning. We were speaking about Krita, favor. There's a special favor of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan is they make a gift, the gift of a jewel. And the jewel is attraction, attachment to themselves. I'll say it again. It's nice, really nice. The door out of the cycle of birth and death is not just the impersonal liberation. That's a tigress, according to Raghunath Das. A tigress. She wants to eat the soul. She's hungry and wants to give to her cubs. So she'll eat the soul. So not that kind. But attraction and attachment, rati, it's sva rati mani. Sva rati mani. Radha and Krishna give a special favor. They give attraction to themselves. It's a descending process. So who do they give attraction to themselves to? They could give to anybody. But if anybody is saying, no, I'm independent, I want to make my own arrangements. Okay. Then Super Soul runs the show. And if one turns to Radha and Krishna in Braja and shows consistently that they wish to have that loving attraction, but it's not coming on its own, then they give it. I mean, at their own leisure, at their own sweet will. And there's a very similar verse we were just reading this morning by Uddhava. Uddhava is being quoted several times in Brihat Bhagavatamrita for this nice verse where he's expressing profound gratitude to the gopis. And what is it he's expressing his profound gratitude for? For their showing him, displaying before him their profound attachment to Krishna. And in the feelings of separation from Krishna, their profound attachment to Krishna has gone through the roof. It's been indescribable. And they've displayed it. They could have hidden it. Well, they could have tried to hide it, but they didn't try to hide it. And Uddhava is expressing his special, profound gratitude. Krita, as he was given a special favor. Anugraha Krita, a very special mercy by the gopis. What? Just showing their hearts, their loving attraction for Krishna. So we have, in the Hare Krishna movement, we have many such transcendental resources that we kind of take for granted because they were just given to us like little kids to get something that something is just given to you. You just take it for granted. But our great acharyas, starting with our founder acharya, gave us, for example, Krishna book and the Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and literatures that are filled with the most elevated descriptions of attachment for Krishna, those who are attached to Krishna. And by hearing those messages, there's a potency. What's the experience of that potency? Of course, we have to be attentive. But through attentive hearing, then this jewel-like favor of Radha and Krishna bestowed, of attachment to them, it's gradual. It's gradual because we're caught in this other business, the Yantra Rudhani Mayaya program. We're being carried away. But the potency, the potential of leaving aside that conditioning and growing spiritually, the soul, instead of being devoured by the tigress of impersonal liberation or by the other methods of materialistic life, where one is equally forgetful of who we really are and what our real happiness is, we're being provided those opportunities. And what's all leading up to that's surrender to Krishna. But it's not like painful. It's relief of all miseries. Okay, so there's a little wandering here and there discussion on verse 61 from chapter 18. And I see there's a few people online. Let's see if there's some discussion. How do you want to do this? You want to have them unmute themselves, Narottam?
Yes, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. If anybody would like to ask Maharaj any question pertaining to the class or anything else in Krishna consciousness, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. I think you have a much more braver audience with you, Maharaj, than we have.
They're more relaxed. They know me. That I'm not, I'm not intimidating or something.
I'll start with one, Maharaj. Since Krishna is the source of everything, he's also the source of that intelligence. But it's not like Krishna is sitting there saying that Narottam Das is sitting there, so let me send some bad intelligence down there for him to do something crazy, right? That he is the source of bad intelligence because he's the source of everything,
Yes.
and
he's
that
the-
bad intelligence is a proportion of karma, our deeds, basically.
Yeah. So you're looking for confirmation, and the answer is yes. Is that you asking for
Yes.
confirmation? Yeah.
And a little bit, yeah.
So, I mean, we gave the examples of the cat and the thief, and the ants looking for sugar water. So, where's the intelligence for how did the birds know to fly south in the winter? They fly south, and the geese go quack 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 quack. There they go, flying south in the winter. Where did they get? They didn't go to duck school or geese school. They learned. So, and so forth and so on. It's it's intelligence comes from super soul. Intelligence comes from super soul. So for any species, or what to speak of, in the human form, persons have different. It takes intelligence to build the materialistic civilization. Now, the super soul gives that intelligence according to good and karma. But it doesn't bring happiness. But that they were looking for happiness apart from him, so he gave the intelligence. How you can search for intelligence apart from him. So and people that do bad stuff, and and it goes on since time immemorial. Wars, there's threats of wars going on all over the place. And where does that come from? And it's not a new thing. It's not at all a new thing. Where does that come from? It's super soul gives intelligence to people how to do war, make war. And the super soul gives intelligence to Arjuna to fight in Kurukshetra battle because Krishna wants it. So anyway, intelligence takes many shapes. The essence of our teaching in Bhagavad Gita is to see put in the foremost position the purpose of Krishna, and then start making choices, strive for the intelligence that align with that which is pleasing to Krishna. Of course, that requires scripture and proper guidance and a little common sense. But it's the bhakti principle. That's where we get the intelligence to go to Krishna. Yena mamo piyanti te. And otherwise, we'll get something else. No problem for Krishna, for super soul. Not what he wants, but no problem. Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand. So outside, we've got some inside. We have a little portable microphone, and we're going
Thank you,
to
Narad.
pass around a little.
There's also a comment.
Okay.
You want to take it?
No, you speak here.
Guru Maharaj, the question is perhaps in a similar vein to what Narottam Prabhu was asking. That the super soul is guiding the wanderings of the living entities. Then it is perhaps easy for someone to ascribe whatever is
Another pair of glasses upstairs.
ascribe even their wrongdoings to the Supreme Lord and say, well, that's, he says in the Bhagavad Gita,
directed
he
me
did
to
it
do
to
it.
do it. So yeah, how might one...
That's pretty clever. Most people aren't so clever.
I've met many people
You've met
say
some
like
people
that.
like
That's why
that?
I'm asking.
God made me do it.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't pull the trigger. God made me do it.
yeah. When we were to tell them, oh, please come to the temple, Whenever he desires, I'll come. That's sort of the,
Oh,
or I'm not responsible. He made me do it, like that.
okay.
And they may even quote this Bhagavad Gita verse if they know a little bit.
So you want, a proper reply to such a person?
Yes.
Well, willing is one thing, sanctioning is another thing. Upadrasha, anumanta. Supersoul is neutral. Supersoul sees and permits. Upadrashta, anumanta. So if you, my dear friend, wish to come to the temple, Krishna can give you the knowledge, the direction. And my dear friend, if you desire something else, Krishna will give the intelligence to do that something else. He's the witness and these two functions. He sees and he permits. Now, let's go to Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says what he wants. So that's the best way for you and me and those of us that are in the material energy to understand what Krishna wants. Krishna wants. Mame kam sharanam. So, you're saying you'll come if Krishna so guides you. There it is. So how do you understand what Krishna wants from Scripture? Your idea of what Krishna wants is he'll permit whatever I want. He'll do that, yes. And same with the person that does some foolish thing, awkward thing, or clumsy thing, or whatever, is they take responsibility. Sadasad yoni janmasu. That's right, that verse, 13:22 Bhagavad Gita. Here it is. Let's take a look at it. Now you tell me what you see here. Do we have something online?
It wasn't a question.
Comment, okay. Anything else in the room? We have a few somethings in the room. Okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So, this has been my long-term focus for some years. You have covered this multiple times, this topic on anger and how one needs to be guided by the intelligence and understanding what causes the anger. I understand that part. Where I am today struggling with is that the intelligence tells you what the patterns are and not to fall into those patterns.
Yes.
So you don't react to the situation.
Yeah.
Up to the point, and actually I mentally prepare myself, I'm walking into this situation, these scenarios will happen, don't react. That's been there for some years,
Great. Nice going.
But there are times, and I know that I'll react and I shouldn't react, but at that spur of the moment, I respond, I react, I go back to my tendency. And as soon as the words come out, I have regret because I know that I was not supposed to say it. And I get even more angry that I know this will happen, but I did it. So what's happening for the condition, or for me especially, it's literally split seconds when that happens.
So you want to know what's happening or what to do?
Both.
Both. Well, Vasana takes over. The nature of surrender to Krishna is when it's protected. Those vasanas, those tendencies, become weakened. When bhakti is strong, those tendencies become weakened. And when bhakti becomes weakened, those tendencies become strong. So when bhakti, how does it happen? Why does it happen? What to do? Strengthen bhakti. And the strengthening of bhakti is, you're under Krishna's protection, and it's not, it's not okay. Well, to go back to the prior question. Well, I'm under Krishna's protection. He let me go, and so I lost it again. I'm not responsible. It's in Krishna's hand. We take responsibility for our thoughts, what to speak of words and actions. And I take responsibility for that. So now, we're dependent, once again, we're dependent upon descending mercy. I gave this example because I like it, but it's part of the surrender unto me message of 1866 is, okay, I'm surrendering, and then I blow it. And then I'm regretful. It's as soon as I blow it, and then and then it happens again and again. So my effort is needed, and mercy is needed, and so we need to take shelter of Radha, Krishna, and Vrindavan, and that means also Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, and et cetera, the representatives of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan, those that are dear to them. We need that mercy, because you or I or any one of us can't do this on our own. So that's the bhakti principle, staying strong, and then tendencies. You mentioned one particular one, but we all have our garden variety of tendencies. And how do you break tendencies? Bhakti weakens them, then bhakti breaks them. And so how do I develop my bhakti? You make effort, and you become very, very clear where the source of mercy is, your favorite source of mercy, and stay there, very determinedly. And you get knocked around, and you go back. You get knocked around, you go back. So be very clear about one of the things that weakens bhakti. There's many things, but it's sound vibration. Sound vibration that's not spiritual sound vibration. And there's varieties of spiritual sound vibration that's not spiritual. And it weakens our determination to reach the real goal of bhakti. It weakens our determination. So we have to, but we're conditioned, and we're accustomed to, and even habituated to, and even addicted to something, sources of mundane sound vibration, or people that make mundane sound vibration. So we don't have to have like a shield up, or just stay in the mood of very strong Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, or Bhagavad Dharma, strong everyday Bhagavad Dharma, and mean it, that this is my connection with Krishna, and your bhakti becomes strengthened, and the attraction for those other things and the disturbance created by those other things, even when you're in contact with you, it doesn't stick. The influence of the illusory energy diminishes and diminishes and diminishes. But you have to want it. That want it means want Radha and Krishna. Want Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. So we have a hand up. Look at this. Shyama Gopika. I see your hand up.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. Guru Maharaj, my question is, sometimes maybe due to our past karma, there are many hurdles or distractions in our life.
Oh, yes.
Which consumes our time, and we are not able to spend the time that we want for our devotional service. So can devotional service in any way reduce the reactions of our past karma
Oh yeah.
so that we make progress in our devotional service?
Oh yeah. Just smile and carry on with your devotional service. Prabhupada, one of the ways that Prabhupada would speak about this is making adjustments. And adjustments don't take care of those things. They're endless. And even if the adjustment looks like it's going to be better, it ends up just being another entanglement. So you have to do a certain amount of things, and you do those certain amount of things. And when the rest of the other things that are beyond your quota, you just smile and move. It's the prioritization. Here's a nice way it's said in Ishopanishad. I've always liked this. People will say, I have no time. It is true they have no time because they're so involved in their material affairs. But time works differently in a life of devotion than time works in material fruitive activities. I'll say it again. Time works differently in devotional service than time works in the realm of fruitive activities. Now, take anything. We have a lifetime, however long, we don't know how long, however long it is, and we want to magnify or intensify, not necessarily quantitative, but certainly qualitative, and absorption in the spiritual energy. And as you move towards the spiritual energy, the demands of the material energy diminish. They move, certainly also, but then with those things that you do, let's say your family and your career and whatever else you're involved with, that's of the material energy, it becomes spiritualized and it becomes far more manageable. Say it conversely. When you don't make progress in spiritual life, it becomes ever increasingly complex. No wonder people go nuts, because it's ever increasingly complex. It's for everybody. It's ever increasingly complex. And so those things that the lives of a devotee, it becomes complex, becomes more simple. It's still, you're involved in things that are complex, because we're in the world. We have bodies and minds. We have stuff that we have at least a sense that we have to do. And some of the things, they are duties. You take care of your children and so forth. You cook your meals at your home, and you do certain things. But you do them for Krishna, and it's a whole other energy that you're in. And there's reciprocation from the living entities that are involved because of your absorption in the spiritual energy. Now, there's intelligence in how to move with the material energy, spiritual energy in the material world. And we don't have too much of that intelligence. So it gets complicated again. But we continue faithfully, and the intelligence will be given. Tadami buddhi yogam tam. Inamo pubiyanti te. So it's in one sense, Sham Gopika, it's principle centered, it's commitment, prioritization centered. And in another sense, it's time management. That's you spend a certain amount of time doing things that are duties of this world, and you don't compromise when it comes to the core big rocks in life. Those big rocks go in first, and every day and every day and every day, and over time, your life becomes gradually spiritualized. So you have to, you draw some lines, some time management lines, and make sure that the big rocks go in first. And you consistently do that, Krishna will smile, and he'll help you. Try to do it on your own. I won't even say good luck. It's not going to happen. It's another cycle of birth and death just waiting around the corner. Take shelter.
Thank you so much.
Take shelter of Krishna, and he'll help you. You're not alone. The Bhakti teaching tells us we're not alone, and it's true, we're not alone. Okay, we have another question in the room. You can take that hand down because its question is answered. Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, on this point of the soul is helplessly carried as if on a machine of material nature, there are those who by samskara or psychophysical nature have this tendency to go into a victim mode, and by this further knowledge of I'm helplessly carried, sometimes one can wallow down further into that whirlpool. And then there are those who, by samskara or...
They're perpetrators.
I was going to speak about those that dependent on Krishna, but they feel empowered and they feel creators of their destiny within bhakti, within the realm of bhakti. So I'm just curious, from your decades of experience nurturing people in bhakti, those who successfully make that transition from victimhood to empowered, dependent on Krishna, but empowered, do they generally do this with the help of like other modalities,
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting, the question you're raising, because somebody wrote to me just today about this. And they're getting it from other modalities. And I wrote back a very short letter. You're working very hard. Make sure you keep Krishna in the center. Because it was drifting. Without the details. Other modality. So, otherwise, we can take help from doctors and dentists and people that know how to help manage emotions and stuff, but it's just it's band-aids. It's not. It's just cosmetic, and it's same as the verse that I had prepared, chapter 2, text 61 says, even if people have disciplined themselves without shelter in Krishna, they're not going to stay in that disciplined space, which is a little bit like her question. We have to make some effort, but that effort is not sufficient. But what is sufficient is the effort plus Krishna's mercy. So your question specific is people that have managed this. It's frankly, it has become an accepted portfolio of many people's lives of these other modalities, but it's not something that those that have successfully transitioned relied upon. Is the purification that came, let's specifically say during Prabhupada's time, there were no such things. It was just surrender to Prabhupada in serving Prabhupada. And there were mistakes, and there was this and that's. We read some funny ones. And some persons didn't get over it. But many persons did, without the modalities, extra things. Okay, so I'm looking at my watch, and Narottam, what do you think? It's 1 hour. It's 9 o'clock over there.
Yes, Maharaj. Time is up. If you have anything else you'd like to add.
There's lots of things I'd like to add. I want to draw attention to the way I ended the class. That is, there are teachings that are very sweet. And sometimes they're appreciated as, oh, they're very sweet. And then we get, a little bit like Sham Gopika's question, we get drawn into day-to-day stuff and we forget. Now, it's not just sweet, but there's instructive messages in those very sweet activities or teachings, just like this. They're very nice because we read it 3 times in our morning readings, this verse from Uddhava. He's feeling so grateful to the gopis because they showed him the intensity and the quality and the type of love they have for Krishna. Now, we have that just by hearing. And he stayed there. The section of the Sanatana Goswami's commentary, he was so attracted. He stayed there for a long time. He stayed there for so long that he even forgot his relationship with Krishna because he was so attracted to the love that the gopis have for Krishna. He was just overwhelmed, and it certainly enhanced his love for Krishna. It wasn't like Krishna disappeared, but his relationship, what he thought of as his relationship with Krishna, became subordinate to the love that he saw in the gopis, and they showed it to him. And so we have the same opportunity through sound, and that's our means. So like, reading Bhagavad Gita. How many times have we read Bhagavad Gita? How many times have we discussed? But, we keep doing, and it goes by doing, by sound, and taking it, to heart, not just learn a verse and recite the verse, but what's the meaning behind the verse? How is it meant to help us come to that same take shelter of Krishna position? Just like, the discussion questions we had this evening. It's real life. And take this sound vibration within. And it may take a while because we're conditioned, but take the sound vibration within and live with it. And that's my concluding thought. We're gifted with so many resources. We're very fortunate. Okay. Thank you all very much. And we'll see you
Thank
next
you, Maharaj.
And we'll go to verse 62 and